I love the Gen Z and all of the young.
I mean, we need to remind ourselves that we were also the young generation
Back then.
back then.
Yeah, but we are a different generation. We are not Gen Z. Today, we have a very interesting guest, Diane Thorsen, design director and principal of Gensler Hospitality Middle East. Welcome, Diane. We're so happy to have you here today with us.
Thank you.
From an expert, name me 5 things that are an absolute must when you build or design a hotel.
I think there's more than 5.
I'm sure there is.
How did you realize that hospitality will be your space?
For me, the thing that really fascinates me is people's behavior. Behavior is something that you see how people respond to places.
How have you seen the region, get back to the track that it always gets back to?
Actually, this is one of the most fortunate things to experience because what you see within this region is absolute resilience. This place has something totally unique of creating this merging of cultures which no other place in the world has managed to do. Because I think we all make design mistakes, all of us.
You can't leave this chair without telling us what your design mistake is.
What were you doing for so many times and didn't tell anyone?
Hi, Valeria.
Hi, Shad.
How are you?
Good. It's been a long time.
It's been a long time, and we are in a bit different times.
Yeah, it's true. It actually hasn't been a long time, but it feels like a really long time.
Yes, it does.
Yeah,
but we sit strong and steady in the boat.
Yeah, and today we have a very interesting guest, Diane Thorsen, design director and principal of Gensler Hospitality Middle East. An expert, I would say, in high-end hospitality design. Very OG Dubai.
Very.
You can see her on a lot of influential panels, and also praising young talents. Welcome, Diane. We're so happy to have you here today with us.
Thank you.
Very happy to have you here. Thank you for taking your time.
Yeah, it's an honor and a fantastic conversation we're going to have today.
Definitely.
Definitely.
The honor is on our side. The honor is on our side.
Thank you.
You've had such an influential career. Tell us what pulled you into design. How did you realize that hospitality will be your space?
Well, I think what's really interesting about hospitality is that it's not so much about designing places. For me, the thing that really fascinates me is people's behavior. And behavior is something that you see how people respond to places. So there are a few things just to explain what I mean by that. So we know right now that there are more people in the world that are over the age of 65 than there are under 5. Did you know that?
Oh,
wow.
Which is super, super interesting. Which means that wellness, which we're going to talk about, I'm sure, because it's part of hospitality, is almost a behavior that is driving the hospitality industry to look at how they can create places where people will optimize their health. The other behavior that for me is really, really fascinating is that people want to feel this indulgence. They want to feel, I'm indulging myself, I'm experiencing something that is a treat for me. And that's another behavior, that's driving how we design and how we respond to this kind of signal that you're seeing in the marketplace. The other is that people are rotating and shifting towards brands. This sense of people wanting to belong to something, especially in times that we're experiencing now.
So true.
People are moving towards recognizing that they belong to something which recognizes certain fashion brands or what car you drive or, anything that makes you feel that you belong to a collective group. Is another behavior that we're seeing influencing hospitality. And this kind of behavior is what fascinated me. So it wasn't that I was drawn specifically into hospitality, but rather it's one of the sectors or disciplines that really You understand people's behavior.
Almost like behavioral psychology.
Behavioral psychology, which I find the most fascinating thing. And how you can create places where people can resonate not just at certain touch points, but every hour of the day. So that's what drew me into it. And then I absolutely love working with people. And it's one of the passions of my life. So I never consider myself as having a career or retiring from what I do, because it's something that I absolutely love. I love doing. So I consider myself so fortunate, and I have huge gratitude, one, for the place that we find ourselves in and the people that I work with and the clients that we have. It's a fantastic opportunity.
Very interesting viewpoint that you're saying that hospitality is, going into or are already in this community persona or perspective, that people are looking into, feeling that they belong within each other. I've never seen it that way. So maybe we could speak a little bit more about that. Diane, you've been in the region for some time. Came from South Africa, I believe, to the region in 2008.
Yes.
So you've been through the crisis 2009. You've been through COVID. You've been through what we're going through now, the turbulence of war. How have you seen the region, get back to the track that it always gets back to, and like how is it living in that?
Well, I think actually this is one of the most fortunate things to experience, because what you see within this region is absolute resilience, visionary beyond visionary. All of these, what people refer to as negative experiences, I see as opportunities. We started a business during 2010 when everyone was running away from Dubai. I saw it as an amazing opportunity to start something new, because I believe that we should always go against the grain. We should be looking for the opportunities in any crisis. And it's almost like a mindset. And I somehow resonate with the mindset of this place, because this region really has the most extraordinary foresight to be able to weather any circumstance. They continually bounce back from everything. We feel completely safe. Huge gratitude for what this region actually brings. Everything that we've been through has been managed with such strategic foresight that we can't but help actually see the opportunity in each one of these situations. So we started a business in 2010, which was extremely successful. During COVID, how the situation was managed was very, again, strategic. It weathered that storm. And what we're going through now is there's an uncertainty, but it's not just this region. This is a global uncertainty. And the way that this region has responded to that uncertainty about creating this sense of safety, the sense of calm, providing information, but managing that it's not fear-mongering. It's very much about what we're doing to protect the people of the place. And I think that gives us the opportunity to see, we're talking hospitality. The visionaries will see this as an opportunity of low occupancies, which we never experience at this time of year.
Yeah, I think everyone is
every resident. Refurbish. An amazing opportunity, because one of the challenges of all the operators is, when do you actually have that low period to refurbish, to come back stronger? And that's what's happening.
Amazing. What do you think the experience? So obviously, just replying to what you just said, we over and over again get a receipt of that, we're always going to get back on track and we don't need to be worried. And I think that that's what we all feel, when we are in this boat, that we know that the resilience are there, and we know we're going to get back to
it. Definitely comes also from leadership, that's the example, and that,
for sure.
Yeah,
we feel safe.
That you get that feeling that you're feeling safe and you're ready to get back.
True.
What do you think that within hospitality? What do you think the experience of hospitality taking us through this timeline that we just spoken about? Like, what's the experience of the person coming in and experiencing the hospitality life here in the region?
For guests, I feel that there is an expectation of wanting to see what the region is going to do because of the mindset of this very visionary approach. So I believe that what will happen is that guests will actually come back and experience a completely renewed approach to hospitality that will focus on the kinds of things, within Gensler, what we look at is what's happening in the marketplace around signals and drivers. And actually, the signals and drivers are really a fascinating way of doing research into the marketplace and what changes are coming so that you can do forecasting rather than actually backcasting of, following trends or anything like that. So, for example, when you see something like a signal of a lot of female travelers forming groups, we spoke about belonging as a behavior. Females actually wanting to travel. This is the most extraordinary place for females to travel. It's so safe. There's, the kinds of signals that we're seeing are groups, people wanting to experience hospitality from the point of view of living in a story. And, there are groups that are forming where you can actually travel to a certain place to relive a novel.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
We'll come to that as well.
Which is, I love that idea. All the things that we spoke about, like wellness, which is not just a superficial wellness, but it's very much on a deeper level where it's not visible, where you don't know it yourself, you don't see it, but your body completely senses it. And I think that expectation of this region being so visionary, we will set a benchmark that will position hospitality on a completely different level from the UAE. So that I'm so excited about that, because this is when we set the tone for what the future holds.
Yeah, speaking of experiences, we clearly see that material luxury is changing, and it's all about experience, about emotions, about experience journey. What do you think would be, how do we design around memory? How do we create that experience that leaves this memorable experience? How do we do that?
Yeah, I think you're right. It's not, experiences are, it's almost, I want to say overrated in a certain way, because it's not about, that immersive experience that everyone's talking about, which has become almost too much. There's too much of that immersive experience. I think what guests are really looking for is what you referred to as memorable. So how do you create that where it's almost unexpected? It's not using the digital, it's not doing the things that
not
are
necessarily
very evident. It's almost this, you have to really understand, again, behavior, guest behavior, to be able to create something unexpected that people will walk away and think that was completely unexpected in the most positive way, and I will remember that for the rest of my life.
Yeah. I feel like it's a real challenge, right?
It's a wonderful challenge.
Yeah, it's a wonderful challenge, but it is a challenge to create something like this these days when you're exposed to pretty much everything.
But it goes to, the small things, and going back to us being connected to our bodies and to our senses. So, I know from the research that we've done that the strongest memories that we have are actually fragrance and sounds. So when you hear something that is recalls like a bird sound or something of nature, the sound of water running, the sound of certain music, it brings up memories that are very, very deep on a very subconscious level. And so to create and craft those kinds of experiences, you really have to understand on a very deep level. And this is why hospitality design is so exciting.
Yeah.
Because it's designing with senses, not superficially. It's really tapping into what are those fragrances that really resonate.
It's also very similar to when you guys are creating something, storytelling within hospitality. But then how do you guys go around the fact of making it not surface level, but genuine in its context?
I love that topic. It is such an interesting thing because I think storytelling with a lot of designers has become set dressing and very superficial. However, when you really research a place and you understand all the artisanal and lost crafts, which I think is going to come back in a huge way, that's when you really understand the storytelling of something that is almost like the lost art. Because now we're moving into an era where we are potentially, there's a lot of tech happening and there's a lot of AI that's being spoken about. But actually, the storytelling goes back to researching a place and researching its history and understanding its people, understanding its people's cultures, the things that have been passed down for generations. That collective consciousness of a place is really what drives that storytelling.
Can you give us an example of an experience of a project that you guys done?
Well, I think, every single project has an element of that because a project that is grounded in research is something that actually has depth. And that, we talk about timeless design. Things that actually are resilient from a design point of view are projects that are grounded in really strong research. So, we worked on a project which was located in Oman. And I actually met this client last week and he said, I remember you actually taking the history of our clothing and actually using that as part of the language within the design of the space. And I had actually forgotten that myself. But the clothing and the dress for me was something that was so fascinating at the time that I went and did so much research around the headdresses, what the patterns meant, the ties on the kandoras, the different, what do they mean? Why is one like that and one straight? And it fascinated me to a point where I wanted to do a book because I thought there's so much narrative around these outward appearances, but they actually have a deep meaning. And the client remembered more than I remembered. So I found that really fascinating. So those kinds of things I think are so valuable, to us as designers.
Do we miss that part as designers nowadays, or don't we have time to do a proper research before we do a project?
I think that, there's a lot to be said about the speed that happens in the UAE or in the Middle East generally. We work at a very, very strong pace. And I feel sometimes we do a disservice to the projects because we want to deliver things with speed. But if you really want to deliver something with depth, then you need to combine experience with research, which takes a little bit more energy and time. And I think that way we will get a better result.
We see so many shifts, I think, in the past years, that people moving toward all this ancestry journeys, very crafted experiences, like luxury wellness tailored resorts. I keep thinking about it for a long time. Do we still design hotels or any kind of hospitality projects in the same way, in a traditional way that we used to? Or do we need to adapt to the new changes, and it will be a completely, even about the layouts, things will change? Do you think we still design it in a very traditional way to people's needs?
I asked actually one of our clients this question, or a similar question. It was around, why are there so many brands? Do we need so many brands? And his response was really interesting, because he said, actually, it's become not diluted, it's become confusing. And I thought, that actually was really intriguing for me. And I don't quite know the answer, but I feel that hospitality has shifted into something that is more of an ecosystem, because we have all of this merging of branded residences. We've got co-living spaces, we've got lots of different brands offering different things. But what is hospitality at its core is people moving away from their daily life to experience something at a different level that will create a shift in them emotionally. And it's that shift that makes you feel in a different rhythm. And that, for me, is what hospitality is. So to answer your question of, will we see differences in layouts? I believe so. I think the more we actually start exploring the alternatives of the guest behavior, we will start adapting and providing different memorable kind of experiences that are taking people out of their expectation into something really extraordinary and far more immersed in nature. I think we're going to see more of that, more of the artisanal craft coming back, all of those kinds of things, because that will shift the behavior again.
Yeah, I think we asked this question a few times before, if we are, moving toward a digitalization of the whole thing. But I actually start realizing that it's all about nature. It's all about tactile, like you said, sound, and everything that basically calms you down instead of stimulating it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I think there are different types of stimulation, but typically, when you leave your daily routines to go on some kind of vacation, it's almost like that childhood anticipation of what am I going to experience. And you want to, in a way, disconnect to be able to reconnect. And I think it's in that disconnection that is the opportunity of what the future of hospitality holds.
Yeah.
Human interaction, is that very important within hospitality? So I'll tell you an experience that I had from
Yes,
Japan.
I'd love to hear.
Very interesting. And I wasn't expecting that, but I had a great experience. So what do you think about human interaction when it comes to?
Actually, you mentioned Japan. So we've got one of our offices is in Tokyo, and I have to say that traveling there and experiencing hospitality from a Japanese point of view, they really understand everything about hospitality.
In what sense?
On a completely different level, eh?
On a completely different level, because it is extraordinary how all of the tiny details. One of my Japanese colleagues had mentioned to me, you just have to look at how Japanese, it doesn't matter whether you're buying a cookie or whether you're buying a luxury handbag, it gets wrapped with the same attention to detail.
Yeah.
And that speaks volumes about service.
So true.
Because it is not just put in a packet and handed to you. It is folded with absolute beautiful attention to detail. The patterning, the way that it's served to you as though this is the most treasured gift. And when you are any environment within Japan, you feel like an absolute queen. You feel as though you're an honored guest. It doesn't matter where you travel. And I think that is about human interaction, where you make someone feel valued, because you don't feel valued if you're interacting digitally with, I'm checking into my room via a keypad. I don't have to talk to you. I can just go up to my room. I can order something and, someone will give me an automated message. That is not what it's about. I think we all crave connection. And again, going back to behavior, and hospitality is a behavior, which I love the concept of. It's really about connecting and feeling rooted in a place. When you go to Japan, this cannot be transported into New York or any other part of the world and
Dubai.
Sit happily there, or Dubai. It can only be there.
I completely agree with you, but you mentioned a couple of those things that I wanted to pick up. So we stayed in Amman when we came to Tokyo, and we were greeted like I love Amman. The Amman chain is my
gorgeous
favorite one. And when you leave, they come out and they bow to the it's a completely different experience. And the culture that you bring in and that you experience, and then we traveled to Kyoto, which is a very, very traditional. Everything is more traditional. It's not very pam as Tokyo. And we checked into one of these very old style traditional Japanese houses. And what we didn't expect was to check in by a keypad.
Oh, really? That's cool.
It was a completely different experience for us because it was so traditional. Everything was traditional, and we had to check ourselves in digitally.
Wait, they still managed to surprise you.
And absolutely, the element of surprise.
There was staff around, and the house, the apartment. It was a big apartment, and it was amazing, and the garden was amazing. But they brought in this new, I would say, maybe Western way of thinking. You can see it in Tokyo as well as some places where they had the self check-in. But it felt so Western to bring in that into this traditional way. So it's interesting how something maybe Western would work in Japan, but at the same time, the Japanese style would not work in this part of the world.
Did you enjoy it, the experience? Or was it a good, surprising element, or was it confusing?
It was confusing. But it was actually a very new hotel. They had just opened a week ago. So we were one of the first guests at the hotel. And the hotel manager, he was around. He was around, he spoke to us. And so I liked that interaction. But it would have been nicer, in my opinion, to keep it very traditional and have someone to talk to.
You see, for me, that is an expectation. When you travel to a place, and especially if you want it to be rooted 100% authentically in its place, you imagine that the digital aspect won't sit side by side. I think that in some cases, they can sit side by side, provided that the human interaction
is there.
And it doesn't outweigh the connection that you want with the individuals, with the people, and with the place. But I think that I think both has its place, because it certainly provides some kind of level of efficiency. There's often where the operators will use it for data collection so that they can use it for personalization. All of those aspects I think are very powerful. But it's the balance, I think, that the industry needs.
I think if you're a big hotel and you want things to go fast, I understand it. This was a boutique hotel, 10 rooms. You can have someone that is, having an interaction with the person. But someone that does it extremely well, and where there's a lot of footfall and traffic, it's Emirates. You can go to the counter if you want to have an interaction, but at the same time, you can have a self-check-in. But if you need, there will always be someone by the side to help you and guide you in case you need help with the self-check-in as well. And I think that's very important,
Speaking of human interaction, and wellness. I wanted to touch this topic so much because I feel like it's not anymore like an add-on to the project. It's like an absolute necessity these days. You know,
expect it.
Yeah, it's everyone is speaking about wellness. Everyone wants it to be incorporated in every design, not just hospitality, but also like a personal spaces. What is a wellness for you, like beyond a spa and amenities?
The wellness aspect, I think, is such a key topic across every aspect of design. And it's the idea of this optimization, being the best that you possibly can be, because people are living longer, they want healthier lives, they want to ensure that they can experience things for so much longer. So the hospitality industry is looking at these extended families. People are traveling more, and we see that actually as, you know, we spoke about signals earlier. We see this as a very strong signal that is driving hospitality going forward, and how operators should be really focusing on what is the future. When you look at the extended family, people are traveling with grandparents, they're traveling with parents, with their young children. And so the wellness aspect needs to actually be completely invisible. And it's not the superficial aspect of incorporating spas or incorporating circadian rhythm lighting. It's not that so much.
How do you achieve that?
So it's all the invisible things that actually should be addressed, like your air quality, making sure that all your sound elements are 100% addressed, you know, your acoustic. What are the things that alleviate the stresses? And again, you know, that's what fascinates me about human behavior, because what are the things that trigger us? You know, the things like, there are certain of the hotel brands, and I won't mention what they are.
No,
but
please
when I walk into a certain brand, there's one particular, the fragrance I just don't enjoy. So I will think, oh, I'm going to a meeting at that one particular, the fragrance triggers me. Now, for whatever reason, I now probably am 1 in a million that it triggers, but I'm very sensitive to fragrance. The other triggers are acoustics. You know, if you are staying in a place and you're hearing sounds within your corridor and you're trying to relax, you know, that is completely a trigger. So it's understanding what are the triggers that create stresses, and focusing on those things is often a very, very easy fix. But to allow the guests to actually focus on the rituals that, again, go back to rooted in place. So, for example, in Japan, we're working on a project for a 5-star brand, which is actually super, super cool. And actually, the operator has part of their experience built rituals in that actually are part of a wellness thing focused on sleep. So you can actually, before you go to sleep, you can actually have the sleep ritual, which completely desensitizes your system, creates your rhythm where they're using sound waves.
Is it like these Gariani beds that you...
Yes.
That you just sit down and then you wear the headphones?
Exactly. So using
brain gym, that's what it's called, brain gym.
Brain gym, and also using things like grounding mats, you know, using the technology in a way that is very advanced, and making sure that people actually experience it, where people will come away saying, I had the most unbelievable sleep and I don't know why.
Yeah. That was actually the hotel in Kyoto. I remember how well I slept because of the mattress, because of the blanket and the pillow. And for me, it's very difficult to make me satisfied on those three.
And that's a science, you know, that is an absolute science to get those things right.
I think some hospitality brands, they have they tailor, right, to all their
100%
hotels.
In my opinion, we're talking about biohacking. You know, it's all about getting all of these key points into the right place. But maybe we see it more within a boutique hotel that has the possibility I mean, some of the big chains that has a lot of money. Don't we always talk about hotel towels?
Yes.
Every like it's in the normal life. Oh, this feels like a hotel towel. But what is a hotel towel? You know?
Yeah, it has to have a certain thickness. It needs to be able to be a certain absorbency. It needs to have a certain fragrance. You know, it's there are a number of things that we associate, or again, the expectation of what you're going to experience. And to meet those expectations, you really need to understand the science behind it. And that's what is so fascinating about design, because to be able to achieve that we spoke about experience from a wellness perspective, you really need to understand what you refer to as the biohacking. You need to understand the biology and the science around what makes a person be triggered by something and what allows somebody to have this incredible sleep. I met with one of our lighting suppliers because we were talking about circadian rhythm lighting. And what I was fascinated about was where they can really truly do the circadian rhythm creates actually heat that is an issue for MEP. So to be able to do it 100% correctly is a higher cost to the operator, but the result is phenomenal. Because if you speak to any of these fitness scientists, or anything where you really understand body's rhythms, to be able to do the circadian rhythm lighting, where it increases the heat to the point that MEP has to kick in, and they've got to increase the MEP, the airflow. They've got to create the temperature control is affected by creating this lighting rhythm. But the end result is extraordinary from the studies that they've done. So when you really research what does wellness mean at a really scientific level, and you apply that, you need to, and you're quite right, you need to have the mindset of the owner, the developer, to create something totally different. And therein, again, lies the opportunity, because it's the visionary operators that are going to say, you know what, I want to create something with a medical expert that is grounded in science, that creates something where people can really come and do a complete digital detox, or they can come and do a reset of their system. People who are extremely stressed can come and do a complete reset. And it's something that people will pay money for, because again, it goes back to what we discussed at the beginning, behavior, which is, I want to indulge myself, I want to be optimized, I want to be the best that I can, and I want to feel this absolute luxury. And those things are what drive hospitality.
It's so interesting how we've changed as consumers. Because back in the days, when we used to book hotels and be like, oh, there's a gym as well. I don't care. I'm just going to be sunbed. I don't care if there's any gym or fitness. Yeah. And now it's such a big part of our life when we're booking something. From an expert, name me 5 things that are an absolute must when you build or design a hotel.
A must. 5 things. I think there's more than 5.
I'm sure there is. But like the 5 key things that is non-negotiable.
So I would say that probably the first thing is to really design your first impression, because I think your first impression is what sets the tone completely for the rest of your stay. Like that minute when you are, as a guest journey, arriving at a place completely sets the tone for what your experience is going to be throughout. And so often it starts before you actually arrive at the front door. So, that I think is number 1. I think the second thing is the human interaction, the human connection. I think that goes back to that, what is luxury? It's the human connection. And it's the service level. It's no longer, is this marble, is this whatever. The other is lighting. I think lighting is one of the most fundamental, especially when lighting is felt, it's not seen. When you walk into a space and the lighting is, you just sense it. It completely changes your energy. We react as humans, we react to lighting, sunlight, daylight, all of these kinds of things. That's 3, right? I think the other is acoustics. And these are all, unexpected kinds of things from a designer point of view. These are all unseen things, but they actually are what create the experience. And I think the 5th, I would say, is attention to all of the smaller touch point details. So the things that you really use daily, it's the small things like the door handle.
Amenities.
Amenities are, yes, amenities 100%. But I think all of the small things like the taps that you use, the kinds of things, like there was a hotel that I went to in London where people actually used to go and take photographs of the washrooms because of the wallpaper.
Amazing.
Stories like that. I saw more photographs of this one wallpaper that I knew the supplier, I knew what it was, I knew the artist that had designed it. Those are the kinds of things that are almost the smallest, almost irrelevant in a funny way, but they become one of the key aspects. So it's all those things that you touch every day. You open that door handle, you move the tap, you feel the lighting, all of those things I think are really fundamental to really, really good design. And then obviously working with the brands, you need to understand the ethos of that brand to represent it so that people, again, we spoke about the sense of belonging. I understand what I'm going to get from this brand. I understand where I am. There's a level of expectation. I'm not going to be disappointed. But I think it's all these underlying qualities of lighting, air quality,
almost
touch
unseen
points, the unseen things that are what makes a design really, really great.
Yeah, I think the lines between, hospitality and like residential design completely blurred these days. And now there is even a new term for that, like resimmercial, You mentioned a few times about the brands. You mentioned about that all the brands now are catering with all the innovative materials and everything is digitalized, like collecting, for example, all the information, and then you can just see who is your consumer, what do they like, what type of bed they prefer, what restaurants do they go, what is the lighting, what scenery they would like to have in their rooms. How do we design with everything that is happening, with this blur between residential and commercial? How do we adjust as a designers to that?
Well, I think, again, incredible opportunity because I think we have COVID to thank.
Yeah.
We went through a time where actually people craved being out of their familiar surroundings into something that broke a routine of being imprisoned for that duration. And so people started using hotels as workspaces. And again, we spoke about signals and drivers and how the market is shaped and influenced by these kinds of things. And that for me was like one of the biggest signals that was almost like a missed opportunity in a way, because we recognized that people started using hotels as workspaces as home spaces. Hotels started feeling more residential. Residential started feeling more hospitality. And everything started becoming one, what we refer to as an ecosystem, where literally you could live, work, play, all in one kind of environment. And then it started creating a design language that started blurring the look even. So we'll often start seeing RFPs coming in from operators, developers, designers, saying what we want is paid back luxury, residential feel, or hospitality flavored workspaces. You're starting to see all of these cross-pollination of ideas. And I think that springs from this idea of creating a comfort level where, again, the spaces feel optimized to create a behavior where people will start to feel that they are in a different routine, in a different space. They can feel at home at work and at work at home. And when they go to a hotel, it's almost like their second home.
What is your take on that? Like, do you still like to go to the office and feel like it's a working space rather than your personal space?
I love going into the office. I think that, again, it's the sense of community, and it's where you collaborate and where you share ideas and you share an energy. I don't necessarily think that I want my workspace to feel like my home space, because I want different experiences. We all have different tastes and different flavors. I don't necessarily like that everything is becoming the same. I think that there's a sameness that's happening, and we are always surprised when a brand comes out, like walking into the space, this chair, this piece of furniture that is unexpected, and it's like a sense of delight. And I think the brands that will create that unexpected element are the brands that are going to shine, because it's unexpected, and it's not that you would want to live in some of those spaces. I traveled to South Africa. I stayed in a hotel that was completely over the top, but it had the most gorgeous art in the space. And the curator was so knowledgeable and so passionate about the art. And it wasn't art that I would hang in my own home, but it was gorgeous, really, really beautiful, with furniture that was so colorful that you didn't know where to look, so eclectic. Could I live with that? No. Was it memorable? Absolutely. Did I fill my camera with loads of every detail, every furniture? It held conversations for me throughout that experience. Those are the kinds of things that I think we need more of. We need the differential rather than the sameness. And I think that's what I would expect from us as a design community, to push the boundaries now, because I think the world is waiting for the UAE to see what we do through this, which I think is our opportunity right now.
To shine.
And for sure we will.
We will, for sure.
I feel like we're shining a lot, and we are coming up with a lot of new
and concepts. You see a huge shift. You see a huge shift already in hospitality, in the market, in community, in design spaces, in wellness spaces. There is already, it's been happening, but I feel like just with everything that's happening right now geopolitically in the region and outside the region, things will be shifting drastically.
We also see a very big shift in immersive design. The galleries or the museums, or where we have a physical interaction. Do we see that trend going into hospitality as well? Do you think that's important, or that doesn't belong in the hospitality world?
I think that the immersive design, this is a personal view. I think immersive design is fantastic for what you refer to, museums, galleries, art installations. But I think when it comes to hospitality, I feel that people want to disconnect from that, because we have too much of the immersive experiences, and it's almost overdone in certain applications. And that's my personal view. I think it has the most amazing place for those kinds of things, like the museums, the art installations. I think they're wonderful. But it almost becomes distressing in some applications, and it becomes like a sensory overload. Again, it's very personal, because it depends what you want to achieve when you're going on a vacation or you're choosing a hotel. I wouldn't choose to go to a hotel that it was an immersive experience. But that's just my personal take.
I mean, maybe it's immersive in a different way. You know, you spoke about the experience of before you're entering the hotel. What's the experience when you come in there, or the fragrance, or the light, or maybe the touch of the sheets, or even maybe the restaurant. You know, you go and eat, if you're in Italy, for example, and you have this Italian experience food of the Tuscan, field, and get to experience the food within the setting. Maybe that's more of a...
True. And I think, you know, when you talk about that level of immersive, I think it's being immersed in the lifestyle. You know, when you travel to Tuscany, you mentioned, you know, to understand what is the rhythm of that place, you know, what is at the essence of Sicily, for example, you know, what's driven the fashion, what's driven the colors, what's driven the palette, you know, what is actually at its core, that is immersive. You know, that's a completely different immersive.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, like my reaction to immersive, I always think digital, which is really interesting. And as you speak, I'm thinking immersive.
Digital comes to my mind first.
I didn't for a minute think about immersive as an immersive rooted in its place. So you're quite right, because, you know, when you travel to any new place, you want to actually understand the rhythm of that life. You want to understand like the dance of what is happening within that region. And I don't mean dance literally. I mean, every place has a rhythm and has an ethos, and it has a collective consciousness, which I think would be something that you want to come away with saying, my gosh, that feeling of that place, I came away with a memory that I totally resonate with.
I feel like immersive is also becoming like one of those trends, you know. But speaking of trends, there are so many different trends these days. You don't know even where to look. Okay, there is a grandma getaway. There is a Viking journey. There is a luxury hopping trend.
Viking.
Yeah, there are enormous amount. There is a dry tourism. There is, I mean, you name it. There are so many. How do you, looking at all these trends, how do we design hospitality or any other spaces if we have so many things coming up from literally everywhere? And what is here to stay? And what do you think is here is just going to disappear? Maybe immersive, actually, digital immersive is here to stay. I believe that. But dry hopping, maybe.
Well, I mean, trends is such an interesting topic, and we can talk about that.
How do you design around trends?
So I don't follow the trends, because I think trends are something that come and go, and they are something that is in that moment. You know, like you will have a color trend, or you will have some kind of trend that people have kind of hooked onto, and then it almost becomes too much, that it's no longer a trend. I think the things that hospitality do really well, generally as an approach, is designing something that really has resilience. Because when you design something that's not necessarily a trend,
right,
but that is something that is far deeper than a trend.
But you know, we talk a lot about timeless, but is there really timeless design these days?
I think that there is. When you say these days, I think what is happening is that as designers, we are pushed into creating, like, is this on trend? Is this, you know, of now? Instead of actually looking at it from the point of view of, will this be something that in 10 years' time will be something like what was created in the Bauhaus era?
Yeah.
Which, if you look at it now, it's beautiful design still. You know, it's completely attention to detail. It has a beauty that is beyond its line. it is something that is not just a trend for trend's sake.
And even mid-century modern as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think there is an opportunity, again, to understand what is driving guests to return. Because if you get that right, you will 100% have something that, timeless is also one of those words. We want a timeless design. What does that really mean? It's resilient design, something that is really rooted in a foundation that is strong and durable and has presence, and something that is a very deep beauty that is based in research, really strong. Then I think it has all of the things that we want hospitality to be, rooted in its place. It really has the ability to connect with people. It has the ability to actually craft something that's really memorable. That we speak about Japan because it's so distinctive.
100%.
But any of the places that we design and that we create today have that opportunity. And we have endless opportunity here in the UAE to do the same thing. This place has wonderful hospitality, extraordinary culture of something totally unique, of creating this merging of cultures which no other place in the world has managed to do.
Yeah.
The success of that for me is extraordinary.
Diane, I would say you're a key voice, especially within the industry when it comes to hospitality design. And you've worked with a lot of younger talent, especially within your studio, Gensler. Where do you think that the new generation will go towards when it's within hospitality? Like, where are we in 10 years? I'm still referring to Le Corbusier and Mies van der Rohe, and will they do that?
So I love the Gen Z and all of the young generation, because we can learn so much from them. Because they actually completely blur the lines between physical, digital. For them, that's all they've known. So we can learn so much from them. But what I love about the workplace now, just talking about the workplace, is that we've really got blended workplaces, because people have got a different mindset now. They're working longer, they're working because they love what they do. And this concept of stopping working doesn't exist for us anymore, because when you're passionate about what your craft is, it's no longer work, it becomes a craft. And we can learn from them and they can learn from us. And I think when you have that approach to working with your team, you don't have this hierarchy within a work situation. You have a situation where you are creatives within a space where you're continually learning. And for me, that is so, so exciting. They've got very, very sharp minds, extremely agile thinking. They can multitask beyond multitasking. And I see that there's a shift in consciousness of taking care of, which is, and I think that probably won't be shared by everyone. But I really think they are fabulous.
I mean, we need to remind ourselves that we were also the young generation
back then,
and people were talking about us and said, where will these
but we are a different generation.
But the younger generation, their job is to push boundaries.
Yes. Yeah.
Because we need
Absolutely.
that. And I love that. I love the fact that they are really challenging everything. And for them, they are completely borderless. There's no border, absolutely no border. And I think that is wonderful.
I could sit here for hours and hours. Valeria,
absolutely.
The time is up. We need to...
It just flew by. Yeah, we still have so many questions.
I know. So this is a topic for days.
Yeah.
It will be an episode 2.
We have to do episode 2, 3, 4 because we've got a long conversation.
We have one final question.
In the end of each episode, we ask in a question from our previous guest, and we had a very interesting guest.
Very interesting.
Last time.
Yeah.
And very interesting question for you. So our previous guest question to you was, in a distant future that feels uncertain and even a little frightening, you're given a choice. Go back to the past or move forward into the future as it is. You can't choose both. Which would you pick?
Oh, 100% move forward.
Yeah, I feel like you're moving forward.
Yeah. I mean, I think the past is actually something that is our legacy, and I think it gives us a foundation. And I'm super grateful for my past, but I think moving forward is really exciting. And I think the future is really bright for us, really, really extraordinary opportunities, even given the uncertainties. I think uncertainty actually shows us who we are as individuals. I think it builds incredible resilience. You see a mindset of what you're capable of doing. And I think that is so exciting to be able to see yourself and think, I can do anything.
Yeah.
So I love that. And so I'm going forward. 100%.
We're with you. We're going forward with you.
Good.
What would be your question to our next guest?
I would say, what would be the one design mistake? Because we all make mistakes.
Yes,
in design.
Of course.
What would be the one design mistake that you've recognized secretly
and didn't tell anyone?
And didn't tell anyone. I would love to know that, because I think we all make design mistakes, all of us. And it's something that often we repeat because we think, well, this is what I'm asked to do. You know, we often asked to do things and we think, oh, not again. But we don't ever voice it. And I think I would love to know that. I would love to know from designers.
You can't leave this chair without telling us what your design mistake is.
Yeah. What were you doing for so many times and didn't tell anyone?
Jokes aside, guys, we're gonna that's a cliffhanger.
Diane,
thank you so much.
It was such a knowledgeable
great conversation. I loved having this conversation.
Yeah, thank you. Very candid, very knowledgeable, very positive, and the only way is way forward.
You're leaving us with a lot of new inspiration, new knowledge, and we're appreciating it.
Thank you. So needed.
Thank you.
Thank you.